Politics. Donald Trump has a path to the Republican nomination, and it leads through the delegate-rich New York, New Jersey, and California primaries. Here's Steve Hayes, senior writer for The Weekly Standard. Steve, as I'm looking at it, he has a pretty clear path to getting the 1,237 delegates, especially if you throw in California, 172, New York, 95, New Jersey, 51. That looks like a pretty insurmountable, clear path to the nomination.
Well, if you believe that Donald Trump is going to get all 172 delegates from California, certainly. I mean, if that happens, he's far and away more likely to be the Republican nominee than to be denied before he gets to 1237. I don't necessarily believe that that's going to happen. California in its primaries has been actually a fairly conservative primary state going back a number of years. I'm not convinced that it's going to happen. Nate Silver from 538 said there's a strong possibility that Trump will come up short of the 1237. I guess I'd put myself somewhere in between you two. I think he's got a path. It's a pretty good path. But it's not necessarily the case that he's going to get there.
What do you make of this, all this talk about chaos at the convention if he doesn't arrive, if Trump doesn't arrive with 1,237 delegates?
Well, I think Trump's comments yesterday were unfortunate. Some people have read them as threats. That may be a little strong of an interpretation, but he's clearly been encouraging violence in the past, whether he's talking about paying the legal fees of people who punch out protesters or what. I think it's just unfortunate to raise that possibility. Now, having said all that, I do think, this talk of bringing in a candidate who's never been a part of this presidential campaign, who's not run, parachuting in someone like a Paul Ryan, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Seems to me pretty clear that given what we've seen from voters this time, the candidate should be likely one of two people, Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. I think some of the other candidates may, in a brokered convention that goes to the 10th delegate, may be able, or the 10th ballot, may be able to make a case that they could come in and bring the party together. But the idea of bringing in somebody totally outside of the process seems to me sort of silly.
Can you explain to me, maybe it's my imagination, but I haven't seen that much about Ted Cruz. I see all kinds of coverage of Kasich and where he's coming from, and Trump, a clear path to victory, et cetera, and Hillary and Bernie. But Cruz has not been getting that much ink, and I don't know why. Is it me or my imagination?
No, I do think it's you. It's not you. I think you're right about that. I think it's actually been true going back to the very beginning of this process. Cruz wins Iowa, and the story, understandably, the story is Marco Rubio does much better than people expected him to do in Iowa, so he's seen as surging. He gets a lot of attention. Trump was expected to win Iowa. He didn't, so he gets a lot of attention. And the guy who actually won Iowa didn't get that much attention out of it. And we've seen this, I think, pretty consistently. The Cruz campaign, I think, is happy to have sort of a slow and steady, tortoise wins the race approach to this. They've done their homework. They've got a good ground game. They're gaming out the delegate process like none of the other campaigns. They have a 6-person team working right now on making sure that delegates who go to Cleveland back Ted Cruz, stay faithful to Ted Cruz, and then continue to back him or switch to Ted Cruz on subsequent ballots if it gets to that point.
Wishful thinking, but hope springs eternal for you, Mr. Hayes. It really does. I know where you're coming from. Don't try to convince me otherwise.
I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. You have to be.
Yeah, and I'm an American. All right, Steve, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you being with us, as always.